Hey everybody, welcome to episode 31 of the AskDAP show, where we answer your Volkswagen and Audi questions. On this episode, we talk about diagnostic fees, Mark 7 Golf R Turbos, and 2.5 and 2-liter turbo TSI timing issues.
Hicks Ford via Reddit. I have an 09 Jetta TDI that has an exhaust flap that is covered under the extended warranty. I take my car to a non-dealership VW specific garage, and they told me the exhaust flap is causing a check engine light code, but also that the part is covered under an extended warranty by the dealership. I called the service department at the dealership and they told me any parts replaced under warranty are required to be diagnosed, thus subject to a $99 diagnostics fee. Does anyone else have any experience with having warranty parts replaced and the diagnostics fee? Seems silly that I know the warranty part needs to be replaced, but they want $99 to diagnose it.
So in reference to having your vehicle diagnosed or requiring a diagnostic fee, even though you know that this is covered by an extended warranty. Let's start with this. First of all, you don't actually know until it's diagnosed by the dealership. And the problem is you can be pretty sure, and it sounds like it's probably a 95% chance that what you're talking about is going to be covered by the extended warranty. The problem is the dealership doesn't really have any guarantee that that's true until they've actually diagnosed it. They can't make every decision based on the good faith that whoever you brought it to actually properly diagnosed the vehicle. If they made that assumption, they would be in hot water, because if they just say, okay, great, we'll replace it for you, they replace it under the warranty, well, guess what? The problem still exists. Well, now they actually can't file the claim with Volkswagen, and they have to cover the labor and the part cost because they can't get that claim covered because that wasn't the actual problem in the first place. So in that situation, what generally would happen is most service departments are going to tell you, okay, here's our diagnostic fee, whether it's $99 or whatever it may be. If it is indeed covered by warranty, it would be waived generally. So that's what you would usually expect from most dealerships. If that's not the case, I would be kind of surprised, and I would think that that wouldn't generally be a practice that most dealerships would follow, but you never really know in those situations. So always expect to pay a diagnostic fee, even on warranty extensions. The only time you're not going to pay a diagnostic fee would be under a recall, in which case they're going to do the repair regardless whether it is or is not the problem, based on the fact that it's a recall and not either a TSB or a warranty extension or something like that.
Thanks so much for your info. I'm currently driving a Golf Mark 7 R, and yes, my turbo 720N, the potential disaster one. Is it a must-happen problem sooner or later, or it just depends on luck?
Okay, so in regards to turbo failures, we actually covered this question in another one, but just a brief overview of what he's referring to. Some Mark 7s had issues with turbos. There was an earlier revision. As far as I know, that was only GTIs that had that. I have not heard of Golf Rs that had failure-prone turbos. I did look into this because I was unsure if there even was a previous revision turbo for the Mark 7R. There was, but it wasn't an N. It actually was an A. It went from A to, I think, the H is the most current version, the IS38 turbo, which we'll put a link to for anybody who is familiar or looking for more information. It is commonly, obviously, installed on GTIs as an upgrade. In regards to, is it failure prone? Even if ours had a failure prone turbo like the GTI did, my guess is it's probably, being that there's a much smaller sample size of Golf Rs out there, it probably was related to that specific problem as to why, if there was a failure-prone turbo, that we haven't seen as prevalent failures, just because there's not nearly as many Golf Rs on the road as there are GTIs. But even the cars that did have problems with turbo failures, it wasn't a guarantee. Our car that has nearly 20,000 miles on it and has been tuned since, I don't know, somewhere around 5,000 miles, doesn't have any issues with turbos, and we do have the earlier revision of the GTI turbo on our car. Hasn't failed yet at this point. That doesn't mean it won't happen, but it doesn't mean that it's a guarantee. So I would not worry about it. I think a lot of people who are worried about the situation, there's really nothing you can do about it. If your turbo is going to fail, it's going to fail. If you're tuned, you're either going to have to make the choice to bite the bullet and upgrade to the IS38 turbo, or just replace it with the factory turbo, or whatever that may be. So that's really boils down to, I wouldn't replace it as a preventative just because it's not guaranteed to fail in the first place.
Brian via YouTube has a 2006 Jetta, and he's been getting a code for a bad cam sensor and the car is stuck in limp mode. Replace the sensor and still have the code and limp mode problem. Car hesitates to start, stalls, and won't exceed 3,000 RPM. When I took it to a non-VW dealer for diagnosis, they saw more codes than me for cam crank in the P0322. Can a bad crank sensor cause the car to throw a cam code as well?
Okay, so Brian, the issues you're referring to, can a bad crank sensor cause a cam sensor fault? It's possible. Usually anything related to cam or crank sensors is going to be either an issue with the sensor itself or an actual timing issue. My guess would be most likely in this situation, it is not going to be related to the crank sensor, but it's possible it is. Might not be a bad place to start if you're not looking to spend a lot of money on diagnostic. They are a fairly inexpensive sensor. I'll put a link to the sensor here. And also, if it doesn't fix your issue, what I would say is, sounds a little bit concerning. When you go to the next possibilities are going to all be timing related. The 2.5s did have some issues with the cam chain adjusters. I'm not sure if it's going to cause these specific faults or not, but it's something to look into. If it's not related to the cam or crank sensor, next step would be, like I said, the cam timing chain adjuster. This is the variable valve timing adjuster at the end of the camshaft. If it's not related to that, you're going to be looking at potential timing chain issues. And what you're describing could be either crank sensor related. If it is, that's obviously the best case scenario. The other variables are probably not great news. So that's probably the best steps to take in this situation.
Armando via shopdap.com. Hello Paul, thank you very much for all your answers. I'm thinking about replacing the tensioner after reading about the problem the old version causes. I have a 2010 GTI with about 106,000 miles. Right now the car is throwing the code P0341 camshaft sensor and also the EPC light. I'm not sure if updating the tensioner will resolve the problem, but after reading what happens if the old version fails, I'm definitely going to replace it. I'll maybe replace the sensor as well. Anyways, my question is, do I need to order any bolts, or the contents of your 2.0 TSI timing chain tensioner service kit, basic, are going to be enough? Thanks again for your response. You guys are great.
Okay, so Armando, first of all, appreciate you checking us out and appreciate the feedback. In regards to the concerns you're having, sounds to me like the cam timing chain issue, or more specifically, the problems around the timing chain tensioner. We've obviously covered that pretty extensively so far. This is our chain gang t-shirt that we made to create awareness around this problem in the first place. It sounds to me like you're either A, having a completely separate problem, could be something to do with the sensor for the camshaft position sensor, or you already jumped time. It's hard to say. It's possible that if you only jumped one tooth in time so far, you might have a fault like that would have a camshaft position sensor fault. Or it says a lot of times some camshaft allocation faults or something like that. Basically what's saying is that this is not correct. And it doesn't know that the car's jump time, it just knows that something is not correct. So if that's the case, obviously that's bad news, because you know that you have to retime it. So you can't just update the tensioner, it will have to be retimed. The great news is that if it has indeed jumped time by one tooth, that is awesome, because generally one tooth might be enough that you could get away without replacing valves. So if it jumps one tooth, you might not have bent valves. So in that case, what you would want to do, get the new tensioner, get the new cover, stop driving the car. Do not drive the car anymore. Get that updated and have the timing checked at the same time while they're in there. They're going to determine if it is out of time. If it is determined to be out of time, they should be able to retime it and then put it all back together and check it and let it run. Then you'll know, okay, do we have continuous issues or not? Something you might consider, and this is really depends, based on that mileage, you might really consider buying a timing chain kit because if you're planning to keep the car long term, it's best to make sure you update all the stuff while you're in there because you're going to pay substantial labor to get into that section in the first place. So it's best to just replace all the timing chains, all the guides. We have kits on the page that you actually mentioned this. We have links to a complete timing chain kit with guides. We'll put a link to that in this video just so that anybody else who's looking for it can see that. But it's something really to consider just based on the fact that if you're keeping the car long term. Now, let's say you're planning to keep another 10,000 miles, 20,000 miles, maybe just slap a tensioner in it and roll because the parts are expensive to replace all the timing chain stuff. So it may not be the route you decide to go. But that's the best way to go. Make sure the car is in time. Make sure that if you think you might have jump time, don't drive the car anymore. Continuing to do so could allow it to jump time further, in which case you would indefinitely do more damage to the engine or damage at all to the engine, and then you're looking at a cylinder head and all that stuff. Thank you for watching episode 31 of the AskDAP show, where we answer your Volkswagen and Audi questions. If you want to have your question on a show answered just like this one, shoot us an email, info@shopdap.com. If you think we missed anything or have any feedback on the questions we answered, be sure to leave it in the comments below. Check us out on Instagram, Facebook, and all the other social media platforms.